Hey, listen, Coach, obviously, this is your first gig in the NFL as a head coach. So if you don't mind, can you talk about your experience so far in the first few months? Has there been any surprises? Basically talk about what it's like to be a head coach the first few months.
Yeah, just part of the organization, just like everybody else. Obviously, you have some more responsibility in your role with different organizational things, structuring, scheduling, those type of things. You have to stay ahead just like you did when you were a coordinator. But today was a good start. We had our first team meeting, and then we split up offensively, and the defensive players worked out, and then the defense is just finishing up right now, and had a chance to go in everybody's meeting room and kind of talk to them about expectations and standards and get to know them a little bit. So it's been a good start. We've been busy.
Coach, just a quick follow-up. Are you happy with the attendance that obviously the players that showed up today?
Yeah, we've had good attendance. Obviously, everything's voluntary. We understand that, but there was a packed house.
Bruce Beck.
Hey, Coach, what do you think overall?
Hey, Bruce.
How are you, Brian?
Good. How are you?
Very good. What do you think overall about the makeup of your team? Obviously, we haven't done a lot of things yet, and I'm not asking for a prediction, but just an overall feel for this roster.
Yeah, I think you just said it. You answered your question. We haven't done a whole lot yet. So this is the first day where we're all back in the building and get to know one another. I mean, there's a lot of things that we have to install in terms of schematics, but we also have to talk about expectations and standards and get to know one another. There's a little over 5 months until we end up playing, and a few months before training camp starts. So this is really just the foundational piece to a long year ahead, and we just try to get better each day and do the things that we need to do. Can't look too far down the road on this thing. It'll get you pretty quick.
Dan Duggan.
Hey, Brian.
Hey, Dan. How are you?
I don't think we're going to speak to you before the draft. Good. I don't think we're going to speak to you before the draft, so I wanted to ask you this. I know the answer will probably be both, but when you're evaluating offensive tackles, is it more important to you to have a guy who's a great pass protector or run blocker? Like, is there one of those you find easier to develop at this level?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think depending on where they come from and what they've been asked to do, that's usually where their strengths lie for the most part. There's some teams in college that are very pass-heavy. There's some teams in college that only get in a two-point stance. There's other teams that decide that they choose to run the football. Look, the job of an offensive lineman, particularly for our tackles, is going to be able to keep the width of the pocket, protect them inside out, and get movement at the line of scrimmage. Those are the two main things we look for in our offensive linemen, and that's what we're going to continue to look for. I don't think some guys are better at others than the other thing, but at the end of the day, they have to be able to do both to be an effective player for us.
Brian Dunleavy.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, Brian, how are you?
Hey, Ryan, how are you?
Good, man. I got a question for you about the pro days. It doesn't seem like you've been at any of them. Why? And it seems like your assistant coaches are going, not just the scouts, and that hasn't always been the case with the Giants. So what's that like? Do they ask you to go? Do they ask the scouts? Why is it important for assistants to go, and why haven't you been at any?
Yeah, I think it is important for our coaches to go, whether that's a pro day, Ryan, or an individual workout, whatever that may be. There's also other methods of evaluations with the Zooms and things like that. Try to get as many eyes on the players as we can. I've had quite a bit of things on my plate relative to getting things prepared to get going here at start of phase 1 and phase 2. They film them all. I watch all of them along with the Senior Bowl stuff or any All-Star games, the tape they've been in. So I think we have a good process of how we've been doing things up to this point, and these next few weeks will be critical to dig in a little bit deeper. Plus the visits are going to start happening.
Art Stapleton.
Hey, Art, how are you?
Hey, Brian, what's going on?
How's it going?
Good. You kind of talked about how full your plate has been. I'm curious, how have you managed the idea of kind of splitting your time between everything you need to get going with your coaches? I would imagine the playbooks. I mean, you haven't installed yet with the players, but I would think you want to do that. And then obviously the draft now is going to kick into another gear going forward.
Yeah, I think that, we've done a good job in terms of scheduling how we meet. When the defense is meeting and the offense is meeting, I'll try to pop into those rooms the best I can, along with the kicking game. I'd say, another thing with the coaches being out on the road, and we've had considerable amount on the road, that's given me some time to just sit in my office and dig in on these college guys and watch tape and catch up in that regard. But I think it's time management, and you hire good people to do their job, and then you make a schedule to try to accommodate the things you need to accommodate to get your work done.
Zach Rosenblatt.
Hey Brian, how's it going?
Hey Zach, how are you?
Good. I was wondering if James Bradbury reported today, and if you can kind of update what the status is on his stance with the team right now.
Yeah, I know we talked about that there a few days ago. I'd say we had good attendance, and Zach, I understand the question. I'm not going to get into who was, who wasn't. I'd just say we've had good attendance, and I told the guys how much I appreciate that, knowing that it's all voluntary.
To jump off that, so do you feel like guys that don't show up since you're installing, a new program and all that stuff, will they fall behind the eight ball by not being there? Do you view it as a negative if they're not here today?
No, I view it as it's voluntary, and the guys that are here, we're going to work with the time allotted that we can work with them, and when the other players, are able to come in, or there's a variety of reasons here. We're in April 4th, but we'll work with them and catch them up as best we can.
Tom Rock.
Matt, you got another person there with you, Matt?
I do. My daughter's here.
That's great.
She was. She took the sunglasses and she's taking photos of the group. So.
Does she have any questions?
You got any questions? Do you want to ask anything? What do you want to ask? She's being shy.
Okay, that's all right.
Thank you for the shout out. That was very nice.
Tom Rock, go ahead.
Hey Brian, how are you? You talked
Hey,
about expectations and standards. What are they? How did you outline those to the players?
Yeah, to try to win each day. Look, we're not playing for 5 months. Improve from one day to the next. Talked about some of the attire and the dress that I expect them to wear in the meeting rooms. Team first attitude, be a pro, which there's a lot that goes into that in terms of accountability, dependability, resiliency. Didn't get too far ahead of things, Tom. It was, I'd say, a 20-minute meeting to start out, and I'd say, 10 minutes of those 20 minutes, I'd let other people speak, trainers, strength coaches, compliant. It was a good introductory meeting.
Was that a big moment for you, Brian? You've been waiting 20 years to get in front of your team.
Yeah, 25. So it was exciting for me. But again, I know we're April 4th here, so let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. Let's do what we can do. We got 2 weeks here for phase 1, and let's have a good phase 1.
Paul Schwartz.
Hey Brian, how are you?
Good, Paul. How are you doing?
Good. We're not supposed to exchange too many pleasantries during this. They want to keep it moving, so that's why, we got to keep moving.
That's okay.
So, yeah,
we're okay with that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I've already allotted my time. I'm sorry.
All right. Next question.
Yeah. when you said you're digging into these guys, these prospects, this might seem like not a strange question, but how good do you think you are at evaluating players? You know what I mean? I mean, coaches have to do a lot of things, right? On field, hands-on. But you're not a scout. Do you feel really confident in your ability to watch this tape and say, look, that's a guy I want, that's a guy I don't want, this guy will fit, this guy won't fit?
I think look, I've been coaching or evaluating players for a long time, and you're going to have some hits and you're going to have some misses. I've learned that along the way, but I think you understand what you're looking for and the positions that you're looking at, and you try to take what they've done, whether that be in college or the All-Star games, the combine, the pro days. There's a lot of things to evaluate, and at the end of the day, you kind of look at the player. You know the strengths and the weaknesses the way you see it, and you give an honest evaluation of what he can do. And there's been plenty of guys that I've evaluated along the way, whether that be college players or free agents that we've hit on, and obviously there's some that you don't hit on, but you do your due diligence and you kind of explain what you see, and we know what we're looking for in terms of the positions, and whether that be in a kicking game, offense or defense.
Pat Leonard.
Hey, Brian, what's going on?
Hey, Pat, how are you?
Good. During this phase of the offseason, how much time do you expect to spend in the quarterback room? Like, will you be in there a lot, or will you leave that to Mike and Shea?
No, I'll be in there. Today I was in every meeting room. I went in there for, we started out together as a team, and like I said, that went about 20 minutes, and then the offense met where the defense lifted, and Mike kept the offense in the offensive room and met with them, and I stayed in the offensive room, and then when they broke and went to individual meetings, I went to each individual group and sat with, in their meetings for about 5 minutes. Then when Wink came over and did the defense, I stayed in the defensive room, said a few things in the defensive room, and then when they split up individually, I went in all the meeting rooms today. Again, I'm still trying to get to know these guys. It's the first day. You're talking about, some base stuff. But as we get more into the playbooks, I'm going to be really in every room as much as I can be. But the quarterbacks, I'll certainly be in there. Yep.
Matt Lombardo.
Hey again, Brian. How you doing, man?
Good, Matt. You?
Good. I'm just kind of curious. You look at the receiving core last year. Neither Kenny Galladay or Kadarius Toney scored a touchdown. You guys only had 3 touchdowns caught by receivers. What are you hoping to see from that group as this offseason program goes along, and how do you get more out of them this season?
Yeah, see if they can learn our installs and pick up our stuff and play fast. And look, the receiver position, or I'd say the offensive position that catches passes, it can be a variety of people. You can line them up in different spots. I think the biggest thing that you can do as that skill type of pass catcher is really see the game through the quarterback's eyes. We have a lot of different route adjustments and things like that, and that's going to be an important part for those players to get on the same page with the quarterbacks and vice versa. That's the only way the pass game works.
We have time for 5 more. We'll go to Jordan Renan.
Hey, Brian. How we doing, man?
Good, Jordan. You?
All good.
Good.
First of all, I can't let it slide. I have another question, but you mentioned there's an attire and dress code for meeting rooms. I'm curious what that is. I thought you were pretty casual on the dressing side in the building.
Yeah, it's casual. Yeah.
That's the dress code?
Yeah, they wear Giants gear when we get in here, whatever that may be, sweatshirts,
Okay, so that's
T-shirts,
kind of what you're referring to?
shorts. Yeah, it's not like, you're going to a private high school, Jordan, and having to wear a tie and stuff like that. It's come in and.
Well, you were the one that mentioned that you had a dress code for them.
Yeah,
the players.
I mean that's it's really dress code, I guess. Yeah, wear Giants gear, come in ready to go.
Gotcha. And also, last year, Kadarius Toney, he wasn't really in the building for the spring. He got injured. It was almost like he was sort of chasing the whole season. I'm wondering how big an off season is this for him, considering everything that kind of how it went last year with what you heard or seen so far.
Yeah, I'd say this really with every player, Jordan. It's a clean slate. We have there's a lot of information right now to consume for these players once we get through the introductions and the standards and the things like that in terms of playbook wise. So each person's going to be responsible to making sure that they're on top of the information. The coaches are here to help them, and then we'll have a good spring there in terms of the weights, and then when we get out of the field, keep it going from there.
Ralph.
Hey, Brian, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good, thanks. Another question looking ahead to the draft, since we won't talk to you before then. I know that ideally you want to go into any draft and just take the best player available, the next guy on your board. But being in the situation you're in with no more cap room, with some seemingly obvious starting jobs and holes to fill, does that change your approach at all, knowing that there might be a situation where you have to come out of this draft with starters at a couple of positions? Does that change your planning or your approach at all when you go into those meetings?
Well, ideally, we're going to try to select the best player available. We're going to start our meetings with the scouts here toward the end of the week with the coaches' evaluations and the rankings of the players, the way we see it, and sit down with the scouting department and Joe and their staff and talk about it. And at the end of the day, Ralph, you set the board, and we've always let's draft the best available player. Let's not reach for a position just because it's a position of need to build our roster. And when those two match, a position of need and the best available player, that's what we're looking for.
Tom Canavan.
You're on mute if you're talking, Tom.
Hey, Brian, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. In the last 3 months, have you guys gone over with the training staff? Last year, you were pretty decimated by injuries. Have you guys taken a novel approach to try and avoid injuries this year, or how are you handling that?
Yeah, we've had plenty of meetings. We've had plenty of meetings on that, Tom. And look, we're going to do whatever we can do as a coaching staff and an organization to help that, whether that be soft tissue injuries. Look, whatever that is, that's what our job is to help the players in that regard. But we've had plenty of meetings in that regard. Went back last few years and take a look at it. You look at how you schedule practice, how you ramp guys up when they get here for phase 1 to phase 2, the hydration portion of it, the teaching aspect of it. We've looked at really all the areas that encompasses injuries. You're never guaranteed, but we're certainly going to try our best to make sure that our players are as healthy as they could be for us on Sundays.
Patty.
Hey, Brian, how are you doing? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. How you doing, Patty?
I'm doing well. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm just from a macro standpoint, a lot of coaches come in, they have an idea how they want to run their program and they kind of stick to it. I'm just kind of wondering, how flexible are you with adjusting your program? And are you talking, major changes? If something changes, let's say your roster gets decimated by injuries, for example, how flexible are you to change your program as you go along in this, your first year? Or are you going to stick to a template?
No, I think you have to be flexible really in every aspect of this job, because there's going to be things that pop up that you're not anticipating. It's no different than, game planning for an opponent week to week. Those things change, and I think you have to have flexibility in this, in the job that I'm in right now. How many people are hurt at the secondary position versus how much we ran with the GPS at the receivers. I think you have to really take a day-to-day approach and evaluate where you're at and do the best thing for your players.
We'll take 2 more, Daryl and then Pat Leonard. Daryl, go ahead.
Hey, Brian, how are you doing?
Good, Daryl. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. Regarding Daniel Jones, what is your checklist for him this spring? I guess if you could just cite a few specific things that you're looking to get out of him. Obviously, these are not going to be contact practices,
Sure.
But as he learns the offense and you get a chance to see him kind of live on the field, what are the particular things you're looking for him to accomplish this spring?
Yeah, I've answered this really the same way the last 4 years dealing with Josh. It's an all-encompassing job. It starts with you just being able to communicate effectively in the huddle or run the no-huddle operation well, really get to know your players and the body languages of each player, receiver, of the things that we're asking him to do, have some input on what he likes and doesn't like, and then ultimately evaluate his decision makings and try to put him in as many different situations as we can to teach him off of the situations that we can learn from, and hopefully he can, retain that as we're playing. And look, it might not come up until week 3 of the season, but you're trying to hit all those things for the quarterback to make sure that he's on point in that regard.
Thanks.
Yep.
Last one here, Pat Leonard.
Hey, Brian, just wanted to ask about the Adoree Jackson restructure, kind of why you guys went to that kind of move so quickly, and does it reflect that you view him as a foundational piece of your program?
Yeah, I think Adoree, I got a chance. I talked to him one time, within the past month, just saying hello and introducing myself. I think he's a good player for us, and, the restructures and all that stuff, I think that's probably a better question for Joe. Just happy he's here. He's energetic. Good being around him this morning.